Good evening. This is the rescheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Today is Friday, March 22nd. Time is now 6:01 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Mhm. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. At this time, we'll take roll call. I'm Webb J., Chairman of the Board.
Commissioner Bailey. Commissioner Carl Lerat.
It's not working.
Only open mic.
Commissioner Karen Angela.
We good? It's working now?
Yep.
All right.
Did it work?
You gotta push the button. There you
Go ahead.
Commissioner Karen Angela.
go. Commissioner Carl Lerat. Commissioner Bailey.
Commissioner Webb J., Chairman. All right. At this time, we review minutes for the January 29th meeting. Do we have any board discussion? No board discussion. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the January 29th meeting minutes.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Lerat,
Second motion.
second by Commissioner Angelique. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. All right, don't see a representative from the Sheriff's Department here this evening, so we'll dispense with the report. Review of low rent and HCVP expense reports for January 2019. Any board discussion? No board discussion. We accept the, we have a motion to accept the low rent and HCVP into the record.
I'm not sure how much of information are we here to discuss when it comes to the public housing,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have a lot of concerns about it as far as the rent and how it's being.
Right. I mean, without the executive director being here, to give her report, which my understanding was she was gonna be here.
Me
All
too.
we can do is review the board. There she
Oh,
is.
there she
Okay.
is.
So,
Hello.
so right now we'll just, accept into the record the low rent and HCVP. And then when the executive director, begins her report, you can question her on whatever that concerns are.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion to,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion to accept the, low rent,
we can do both of them together if you'd
the
like,
low rent and the housing choice voucher, financials,
for January?
January.
All right, a motion made by Commissioner Bailey,
I second.
second by Commissioner Laurette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. All right. And then we have the VMS report for, and I'm,
You're going over January.
yeah. So, any board discussion on the VMS? Seeing none, can we entertain a motion to accept it into the record?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion to accept the VMS report.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Bailey,
I second.
second by Commissioner Laurette. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. All right.
Director's report, I want to pass and share this with everyone. I printed one for each person. It's an email that I got from my fee accountant.
Do we have a sign-in sheet? as
Yes.
well?
It's just one sheet, right?
It's just an email.
Looks like an email.
Yeah, it's an email. It's oh, it is 2 sheets.
That's just a confidentiality notice.
Yeah, the second sheet is confidential. I'm sharing this with you guys because I received it from our fee accountant on March 17th in reference to our February financials. And basically, he said that he would not be able to process them for this board meeting. And he stated his reasoning for not processing is because he didn't have all the information. He did come to our office. He spent the day at the office. I'm not clear as it relates to why he could not or did not receive all the information that he should have had. But that's not my biggest issue. My biggest issue is that I gave them a drop dead date, which was this month, the month of March. We acquired a new accounting system in October. There was training for that new accounting system. And to date, we're still not using the new accounting system. The intent of the accounting system, I would have been able to print had we implemented. I would have been able to print everything that we need. The new accounting system is online, it is in the cloud, and there's mobile access. It gives us our own accounting system, which means that we have control of it, but he still has access to do the work. So it's an issue that I will address. There will be some changes, and I'll give you guys an update on that later.
So, help me understand, is he still using for the books an older version of an accounting system?
He's
And he
still
hasn't
using his
used
own.
And didn't we, a while back, we did allow you or said that we were going to move on to the new system. So basically what you're saying is that if he was with us using that new system, then when something like this could be avoided to where we would have access to that information
Absolutely.
in real time,
In real
all
time.
time.
In real-time accounting, and the significance of that, and I put, I started focusing on it more after the last board meeting, when he gave the report, and he talked about our cash flow being at a negative, and I had to basically go back and do some research because it was different from the little, information that I do have in-house. Basically, it's 45 to 60 days behind real time. It has been that way for years, which is why I wanted to do a new accounting system. So in this packet, which would have been the packet that we would have been working on today, had we had a packet prepared for you guys. But in this packet, which does not include financials, had it include financials in his report, he would have given us a negative cash flow, when in reality, in real time, when in reality, in real time, as of today, what I did is I went online to our account. And what I printed was our account balance as of today. Our account balance as of today is $92,000 in the low rent account, which is consistent with the records that I have, and $83,000 in the low HBC account.
And just to comment, as I mentioned, my background is accounting.
Yes.
And that's not uncommon. To have your accounting records be behind, it's just how far behind. Usually you close the books within X days after the month, and it's live there. But when you look at your cash balance on a financial statement, is not necessarily a true testament of what your actual cash balance is, because you got checks that are floated or sitting out there waiting to clear.
Right.
So, I'm not alarmed by,
It's not alarming, but as an agency and for planning purposes, and also the fact that the Department of Housing and Urban Development expect us to give them a month report which reflects our budget and actual expenditures, it makes it difficult to do that. If we had our own system up to date, then we would be able to satisfy.
now that is more concerning, that if we purchased it, we got it, and
But we're not using it.
when you're not using it, that is a concern. And speaking with him, what commitment has he given on getting that up and running?
Well, every month, I've been told that it would be up and running for the current month. So at this point, we're not going to accept any other excuses. We are going to make some changes internally. We have problems internally with payables. We have problems internally with our financials. So I've made a decision, and I've discussed this with our accountant. We just finished our audit. I'll go over that later in my presentation. But I've discussed it with the independent accountant that we hired, and also the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it would be in our best interest to hire an in-house accountant. We can't afford, based on civil service pay scale, to hire an accountant one, which starts at $32,000, and that's what we're going to do. We are in contract with Mr. Russell. We are going to keep that contract in place, because even though we're going to hire an accountant in-house, that person is going to have to be trained on the requirements for public housing reporting.
I would like to be part of that interview
I would love
process,
you.
because if that, I just caution that we think that through completely.
It
Because
has been.
it takes, getting a younger accountant that would be in that price range might not have the full breadth to put the whole thing together.
And I agree, which is why we're going to continue the contract with
Okay.
Russell.
All right, okay.
But I've been thinking about it for quite some time. The accounting in-house is done by Brandy, who is our housing supervisor, and she's strong in every area except that area.
Yeah.
And it has.
And that's fair.
It has.
If
been
it's in conjunction together,
together.
fully understand that.
So we just finished our audit. The audit was on the previous year. Oh, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. We just finished the audit. The audit was on the previous year. The due date for the audit to have turned over to the legislative auditor and a copy to the Department of Housing and Urban Development is March 31st. The audit was challenging.
Is that in here?
No.
Are you just talking about?
Yeah, I'm just giving you a report
Okay.
on the activities. But the audit was challenging because a lot of the documentation we really could not find. I made some phone calls, and I did talk to Mr. Webb about some of the things that they were looking for, and they just weren't available. We have files. We have lots of files. The organization of it is challenging. We're working on that. But as it relates to the report, we will have the report by next week for the audit.
Anything to share that might be missing that?
Compliance issues. There was a 5-page document that was given last year from the audit, and none of those things were addressed. We have been able to make changes and address most of those issues, but it won't reflect in this audit report.
Will it reflect in next year's audit report?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And that's because the year started in October, and the previous year ended in September. And there's also, he read all the minutes, which is a part of his responsibility. And there's some things that he wanted me to address with the board as it relates to the dialogue that happens at the board meetings. And there are certain things that they specifically look for. And we're going to, we address them, But the terminology, and one of the things that they're looking for in our minutes is us engaging in dialogue about the current budget and the actual expenditures on a monthly basis, which is a part of the oversight management for the board. It satisfies your responsibility, and it requires me to give you a report on that, so you have accurate information on a monthly basis. The other thing that he wants us to do is talk more about the capital fund. And I assume it wasn't discussed previously because you guys weren't accessing it, right? So we'll talk about capital fund today. As of to date, we have a total of 129 units. Of that 129 units, 20 of them are in the mod program. They're in mod because as we have a vacancy, we are not leasing up. We're not leasing up because our units are substandard, and it needs to be repaired before we could put a new family in it. There needs to be a lot of work that's done. We have an occupancy rate, because we're going to the mod program, in our low program of 100%. Our PIC score is 100%. So we are meeting the requirement that Department of Housing Development put in our corrective plan, which is 98%. That's the cap. You guys, does everyone have a copy of that?
The corrective action plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the cap requires us to stay above 98. On our HCV program, we're now at 101. We have had a lot of activity with the HVC program, but we still have a issue that I want the board, because we have a lot of realtors on the board, and I'm hoping you guys can help us come up with a strategy to engage new landlords. But back to the capital fund. With the capital fund to date, since we've accessed, our first draw was in December. On the capital fund to date, we have repaired 16 roofs in in Boutique. We have another. Okay, we have another 10 that's coming online. We've already engaged in a contract. We have purchased 129 windows, and the need to purchase those windows, and this is cap fund activity. The need to purchase the windows is because of our REACT score. And our REACT score, our worst issue is windows and egress. So the original goal was to identify units and purchase windows, but we hired an inspector, and we have had all of our units inspected and they all failed. So if that was the actual REACT, we would have gotten less than last 2017 score. So realistically, based on the money that we have, what we're going to do is replace a number of windows in units instead of doing the whole unit. And the number that we're addressing is every window that does not open. Aesthetically, what we're going to also do is focus on replacing all of the front windows, but we won't be able to, we don't have the resources to do the entire unit.
Part of what our problem with the REACT score in the past was in relation to the window was that they didn't stay open.
That's an egress. That's a safety hazard.
So, I mean, if we're replacing windows that aren't opening, we're not really solving.
We are replacing every window that does not open.
Right.
And we will still have resources enough to replace the front windows.
And how does that affect our score on the windows that are not staying open?
We're replacing those. We're replacing every window that has a egress.
So it's not just going to be the front windows, because I did hear you say that, so I'm trying to.
It's going to be the egress and the front windows.
Okay.
So what we did when we had we hired Quantum REACT inspection company to go in literally every unit, and in every unit we address the egress. So I have a report on each window that needs to be replaced, and then counting those windows, we came up with a total of 129.
Okay.
That's just the egress. The other issue was the roof. We have an issue with roof. And we have an issue with patchwork. Patchwork is not allowed. Apparently, we're patching doors, not allowed. So we're addressing, we just don't have the resources to make all of the corrections that need to be made. So I've made a conscious decision to focus on the L3. The L3 is safety and health, which is the biggest hit in the scoring system. We lose 10 points, up to 10 points for safety issues. So we're going to address all of the safety issues first. We have other issues. We have concrete issues. We have issues with, and that's a safety issue. We have issues with erosion. That's a safety issue. So it's just prioritizing the safety issues that we have. The doors inside the units all need to be replaced because the doors are patched. So with that being said, with our capital fund, we are making an impact on the problems that we have, but we are still short.
I think with the auditor was talking about and what we did do this like a lot in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the cap fund program like every meeting, and
Okay.
then we always had an update or some kind of update on the cap fund.
Right.
And the figure of the cap fund was always like it was included in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
And also with some of the things you're saying, I think it might be time for us to kind of revisit that plan that we have, that 5-year plan.
Right.
And maybe
Well,
make
that's
some-
all. We can only spend the cap fund on the 5-year plan.
Right, and just kind of, I'm saying like maybe we should,
The,
as a
the
board,
five-year,
like,
the
revisit
five-year
it and-
plan is really updated every year.
It is.
And it's it looks out 5 years, but every year you're updated.
right.
Yeah,
So you
forecast.
update and look out the next 5 years.
So it is time now. The process. There's a process. We have to update it annually. However, we have to engage in a public hearing, which is announced right now.
Right.
The public
Okay.
hearing is scheduled for April. It's I think it's April 26th. I'm not certain as it relates to the date, but it's advertised. And when that public hearing occurs, we have to allow the residents to participate in their concerns as it relates to what they want to see done, and we have to interject that
And the
in that
reason I bring
plan.
these things up is just because like I just, I remember
Stuff.
that these are things that now that the auditor mentioned some of these things, these are things that come up in mind. I'm like, oh wait, we haven't touched that in a while. It seems like we've been
We
very,
did in September.
Yeah, but I don't know. It still seems like I haven't had much of an update.
Right.
I think it's been very. I'm sorry. I think it's been very like financial heavy. Like we've been trying to run behind like the reports and
To be honest with you, what's happening is that we're still in crisis management. I mean, I come
yeah,
here.
You're right.
I come here and we have the meeting and we discuss what we discuss, but every day we're in crisis management. We have not stabilized.
And it's hard to get stabilized.
It will.
From where
It's,
yeah.
we're not stabilized.
It's- I think I know we're talking about the reports, and the problem is the reports haven't been consistent enough for us to really drive meaningful discussion out of the financials. To really talk about the 5-year budget and all of that, he finally put in the report last month, the month before, which was held out until the very end of the meeting. After the meeting, I got it. I said, yes, that's good. We got this packet in January, and it's only low rent. Unless I'm missing something, I don't see Section 8 in here. And,
It was given to me. The board last month, the board packet was leaving without the financial report because I didn't have it.
Yep.
So in preparing the packet, he sent us what he had.
Yeah.
So,
But that's what I'm saying. If we have to have, and I would happily spend time on here and if everybody has the same packet, just spend time on this same page.
Mm-hmm.
We can include what you were just asking about, that they were wanting the budget talk. Because I can show you right here, now that we have a per unit cost and looking at it to the budget, and I can make it into layman's terms, where we're like, hey, you know what? We're doing pretty good versus the budget, at least in low rent. I
So-
don't know what we're doing on Section 8.
I
we
think-
average. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I was just gonna say. I think overall, in as a board, we're supposed to, come up with these things, but we need to really fine tune on what we need to see in these packets consistently so that we can measure the
Yeah.
performance and be able to give, educated feedback and be more aware of what's going on based on what is in these packets. And it starts with us coming together, coming up with a formula on what we want to see every
Yes.
week, and then we can,
Yeah.
we'll be fine. We can see, okay, this month this happened, this month, and I think that will kind of make it to where we can have certain committees to look at certain
Yes.
things.
Yes. So let me say, what you just said, literally, is item 1 and 2 in the CAP plan. That is 1 and 2, and it's a board requirement. And it's something that HUD wants us to give them a report on. I have to give a monthly report on the CAP plan, and basically, I tell them we're working on it. But this was put in place before I came. So what you're saying is 100% correct. We do need to have that in place because, I mean, I'm transparent. I share as much as I can with you guys, but there should be accountability and benchmarks and thresholds that I know that you guys are looking for, so I can reach for them. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have a blueprint in place. And basically, I took the job, eager. I love the job, but I have to figure it out. In most things that I'm engaging in and working on is when HUD says a report is due, which is a flag to me. Okay, this is a part of something that we were supposed to be working on. I don't, so that's a challenge in itself. We managing it, but I'm glad to hear you say what you said. We're working on the retreat. Those are the things that we could talk about. We need a committee. I need a support committee from the board. We need a committee to help in the planning process. As it relates to the CAP plan, it is an annual process, and we actually went through the process in September. We had the public hearing, we had before the meeting. And the information from that meeting is what went into the 5-year annual plan for the year that we're working in right now. That information doesn't change because of the condition of our units. They're all substandard. And what the tenants are consistently saying is that they want a better quality of life. They want their units to be decent. So in changing it, there's not a whole lot that's going to happen until we have decent units, which is a part of the vision. I would love to have time to start working on my vision plan. I haven't done that. In the last meeting, you talked about you talked about
Cash forecaster?
nope. You talked a business plan. A business plan. You talked about a business plan. We have HUD has rules and regulations. For us, a business plan will be our administrative plan, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a vision plan. But we do have an administrative plan, which was produced by the last administration. I think you guys participated in that. It's time for us to revise it, which will be our business plan. So our policies, all of our policies need to be updated. They all need to be updated. So there's a lot of work that happens, a lot of corrective activity that happens, but it's all happening at one time. And at the same time, HUD is reducing its inventory. We have to be on the same page with what's happening with the environment of public housing. We're having a meeting today. We're never going to have a Friday meeting again, but we're having a meeting again. A meeting today because I received a notice. Breaking news: HUD has new policies. Chairman Jay and Commissioner Belloc and I went to D.C. and we met with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and we talked about a concept. There's policies for that concept, and they're going to be discussed on next week. So there's a whole lot that's happening that we don't talk about here during these board meetings.
Yeah.
And basically, I need to be honest with you. I've been going through the motion based on the agenda, but I would love for us to change the agenda and talk about the things that you're talking about.
I think everybody can agree that this agenda is antiquated to what the board is now doing. So, you take a look at what the council has for an agenda, multiple pages with descriptions and whether or not an item needs a motion and different things.
Right.
And I think that moving, not necessarily that detailed, but to where we are addressing every issue in the cap and that they're requesting for board oversight, I think by simply forming a better agenda for our meetings would streamline our meeting process and also accomplish that as well.
Yeah, and we need to modify this because in the cap, this is March. We actually stated that we would have those two things in place in July 31st for the key performances, which is what we're talking about. Having a oversight management process for key performances of the agency. We said we would have that in place by July of 2018. So we need to modify that. Written records and documents, we have a lot of written reports. And if you guys would like to see them on a monthly basis, we can put it in there. We'll modify the agenda.
Yeah, I think it's time.
All right, any further board discussion at this point? Ms. Hollis, you have anything else?
Yes, we need transportation. We need a car. We have the Toyota, and we have two trucks. The trucks run well. They're very sturdy. The Toyota is definitely dying. It's in bad shape. The importance of that car is that we need it for inspections. When we visit, and we have inspections weekly, when we visit a tenant's house, we can't go in a marked car. We need an unmarked car because basically if we go in a marked car, we're telling everybody in the neighborhood this particular tenant has a Section 8 voucher.
It's been like this since the beginning of the time.
So, can we find out, in moving towards that, can we find out what the car that we currently have is worth? And what kind of budget we're looking at for getting a new car? Can we use the current car as a trade, or so the board has some idea of what we're looking at?
Yes, there is a procurement process, and I can get the value of the car, Blue Book value.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can get that information for you. I just wanted to put that on the table. But before we leave from this, and we're talking about what the board wants to see in the financials, I got a phone call from the Department of Urban and Development, and I had the conversation with Commissioner Webb, and I kept saying, I don't know where all this money is coming from. On my first day, I had to buy a lawnmower, and that was a problem. I purchased a lawnmower because the grass was 2 feet high, because they didn't have a lawnmower, and they said we had no money. And I have been spending money. I've been spending a lot of money on the developments since day one. But we're accumulating this money in the HCV program. And basically, what I've learned is that through the accounting process, because we don't have control of our accounting, literally the fee accountant has been controlling the agency through the accounting and controlling our money. And basically, we had stopped allocating to the HCV program. And the accumulation of the money is our admin fee. And in understanding that we were not allocating it, one caused a problem for me because I'm looking for money every day. And basically, there was a budget we had for DHAP in the past, and apparently the previous administration spent the DHAP money. So what the fee accountant has been doing is trying to accumulate money in the HVC program to replace what was spent for the DHAP money. Of course, we have to pay that back, but we cannot use this current year money to pay that back. We have to come up with a plan to pay it back, but I need to use what we have available.
Well, I'm gonna keep going back to the financials, and if we had current financials within a week of the end of the month, you could see it more current, but, I mean, I'm just gonna use low rent as an example. And I lost my place here. Of course, I'm gonna.
Sucking it up, you won't find it.
This is where I pulled it from. That's the bank account. Financial statement. It's like the bank account again. Oh, here we go. But that's not by unit. Oh, here we go. So like in low rent,
Yes?
and this is something we could simply have, budget versus actual. This is low rent, January 31st. And I'm going to start with expenses. And, you know, when we used to look at it in whole dollars, it didn't really tell you where you were going.
Right.
But the way this does is it now says how many units through 4 months did we have in low rent? And it's 434. And what it does is it takes the total expenses.
It was what, 434?
That's what's on this report under low rent, 434 for the 4 months through January 31st. And what it's saying is your expense per unit is $502.44 that you're spending. The budget is $641. So you're $141 underneath your budget. But you can't totally go by that because you have to backtrack and say, well, are we getting the revenue that was also budgeted? And the answer is no. The budgeted revenue per unit was $700, but we're only getting $600.
There was a process in place where somewhere a decision was made that every unit would be on what's called flat rent.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that anymore. Rent, I'm surprised y'all haven't been getting phone calls.
But
But
my
we've had a
point
rent
is
increase.
looking at it from this perspective, it's okay that you're getting less revenue per unit than your budget. It's making sure that your expenses are in line
Yes.
with less per unit. So you're getting 606 per unit, and you're spending 502. So you're below that by $100 per
Yes.
unit. So this thing should be accumulating cash in whatever account this is.
Correct.
It's telling you you're going to accumulate because you're not spending it.
Correct.
And you're staying within guidelines of HUD or whoever saying, hey, you're out of whack, your budget. You know, if you were getting $600 per unit, but you were spending $650 or $700 like we were doing last year, I'm sure, they're going to go, hey, you're out of whack. But if you were looking at whole dollars, you wouldn't necessarily see that. And it's trying to stay in line with your budget, your 12-month budget through September 30th of this year. But if we had every single one, all we have to do is look at this sheet and the balance sheet, and it all ties together. And we could we could walk out of this meeting going, okay, we're comfortable that directionally we're not going to be short of cash. Because right now you don't know. You're seeing a negative on the financial and on the balance sheet. And,
right.
And you're looking at cash in the bank, and you're like trying to make a put, you know.
Those type of suggestions is invaluable to me because
Yeah.
I don't
Without
know
the other
accounting.
financials in that sheet, this sheet should be up front. And we
Right.
should look at that, take 5 minutes on each one, and everybody would catch on like that.
We have a lot of fluff in the agenda. It hasn't been changed since whenever, but there's a lot of fluff, and I think the intent, just based on what I know, the intent was just to give you guys information and not a true picture.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that you have a true picture. And that type of information, that type of feedback is what I need.
But here's the thing: when it comes to our financials, for as long as I can remember, and I don't know how long I've been on here, a long time, we have never, ever been able to look at the financials and say, I see where we are as an agency. We're good. We're back. We have never been able to do that. So it would be nice to finally be able to sit down and say, I know what the bottom line. I know how the agency is performing. I know what's in the bank. I know what cash we actually have, to how much, liabilities we have. But
Right.
until we get there, it's always going to be, oh, we're in trouble, or what's going on, or, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm not blaming anybody here, but all I'm saying is it would be nice to get to that point, so we can look in our statements and everybody walk out here and say, agency is in good standings, or where do we need to make the cuts, or I see where the problem is. I've asked that many of times too,
So,
many times. Right on that podium,
Mhm.
I asked that question when the person that knew the answer was standing there, and he ran around it. And I was told to ask that question because somebody knew we weren't in good shape. Still never got a straight answer.
Well,
I have
we
a
are
problem with that.
financially in good shape. We are under budget. That's intentional. We cut every contract. I had to spend 30 minutes explaining to the auditors $150 payment to each employee for uniforms. And basically we were talking about the principle of it. But when we started talking about the reasoning for it, it was no longer a question. We were paying Centaz almost $700 a month for rented uniforms, and for them to pick them up, wash them, press them, and bring them back. So that contract was discontinued, and I gave everybody $150 stipend and patches to go buy polo shirts and iron their patches on, and that's it. That's over with.
it's a good cut.
And that's and
Yeah, we cut a lot of things.
and to see those kind of things too right in front of us. I mean, that'll be great.
Right.
And to see what cuts we're making and what money we have coming in, and have it be blatantly obvious. So we don't really need like an accountant to put it together for us.
Right. Right, I
I'm glad you
understand.
We have definitely made great strides
if-
as an agency in the last.
If that report was in
No,
this
we-
thing, we could walk through that, we'd be done.
But
And you would get a picture.
what I think needs to happen at this point is we need to make sure that every month the board is getting exactly what we need to be able to do our jobs effectively. And if that involves forming a committee of two of our board members, along with you, to sit down and figure out, okay, these are the requirements, this is what our cap is requiring, this is what HUD requires, this is what the auditor recommends, whatever the case may be, and then figure out, okay, what reports, what documents need to come every
board.
month, and what are the benchmarks gonna be, then we need to do that. If we keep it to two members of the board, then we're under a quorum, so we can have that'll be a legal committee that can meet with you to get that information. Then that committee can come back to the board, we can implement it, and we can have it as part of our board packages each month. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there some type of, besides the cap that we all have a copy of, is there a guideline from HUD as to specifically, I mean, I've read the commissioner's manual, I've done the commissioner's training. We've been around the boat, I've met with officials with HUD. I think I have a good grasp of what kind of stuff they're looking for, but is there a formal
The cap,
recommendation from HUD as to what exactly they want the board to specifically do every month?
the only formal thing I have was the letter that they wrote to the board on July 6th. I don't know why I pulled this out, because I was going through the audit. But on July 6th of 2018, we received a letter. It was provided to Leela, and it talked about the deficiencies within the agency.
Has the board received a copy of that, or do you know?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, you have.
Okay.
Oh. The cap fund is the only money that we have, only money that we have that comes in that's restricted. And it's restricted, the restrictions, we actually put the restrictions in place ourselves. Because the restrictions are from the 5-year plan, which means we can only spend it on a 5-year plan. The only other source of money that we have that comes in is our subsidy money. And the subsidy money, of course, is to maintain the property. It's for unit turnovers, it's for salaries, it's for operation.
I understand that. I think what I was getting at is what, in looking at other agencies around the country that are top-performing agencies, what type of committees are their boards forming to address the issues that we're talking about this evening? So, for instance, we obviously need one that's gonna address how the board package is gonna be put together, the agenda, so where it's going to satisfy the requirements that the board needs to do the oversight.
To identify key performances.
Correct. There also seems to be a need for a separate committee just to do the annual revision of the 5-year plan. It would be beneficial if there were 2 board members that spent time working on that, because, you know, we come here and we talk about, okay, we gotta update the 5-year plan, we gotta update the cap, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. But this is 1 meeting a month.
Right.
And there's only so much information that can pass, and nobody wants these meetings to go 2 hours long. I think that's insane. So if we had a couple committees handling a couple of these things, and it can be done, I don't even necessarily think that they necessarily have to meet in person all the time,
Right.
but where those individuals are in charge of figuring out something to come back to the board with that we can then implement and vote on and revise, et cetera.
I'm almost positive that so there's some system in our agency that if somebody that's inside the agency pulls a report or can go to and they'll pull a report and they'll give us whatever measure that we need. I just need to figure out exactly which report that I need them to pull.
So
that we can go
it sounds
off of.
like we're talking about governing issues. And you said you get frustrated with HUD because they don't tell you. They don't tell you. You are the governing board.
Right.
So you are the ones that put those systems in place. What I do, because it's no secret that my public housing experience was limited. So what I do as an ED is that I identify agencies that's doing well, and I've developed relationships with those EDs. And through those relationships with those EDs, it gives me guidance on their best. They give me their best practices, and I try to duplicate where I can duplicate. But as a commissioner, I mean,
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. I understand it, but I'm just saying, like, as for us as a board, like, we have to define, basically, like you're saying, we have to define what we want to govern. Okay, like what aspect of
I
okay, so
understand
like,
that, and
whether-
it's and what we've set out for ourselves, we put into the corrective action plan. So in order to meet the demands that we've set on ourselves based on that corrective action plan, we need to figure out what do we actually need to address each month in order to satisfy the requirement that we've now placed on ourselves that now
Right.
HUD has seen, and that's what they're looking at.
and like
you guys mentioned 5 things specifically, and the 5 things are financial budget versus actual expenditures.
I was just looking at
The
that.
the second one was occupancy, including unit turnaround.
yes, we did. And that's what I'm saying. Those are things that we used to we've gotten away
And
from.
and
We've gotten away from them.
we deal with occupancy. We're at 100% occupancy.
But we used to have
Not because we're leasing up. I think you guys are focusing on leasing up.
we were focusing on leasing up, but we had so in our packet there was a report that it had units, how many units total leased, how many units vacant, what units were vacant, why they were vacant. Oh, these units are under mod. So we didn't include those units that were in mod as our actual vacancy because we were still getting, it was in the mod program.
And we were still getting paid
We
for
were
it.
still getting paid for it.
This report right here, I was reviewing all this stuff today.
Yeah, and basically, like I was saying earlier, I was just saying like we've kind of gotten away from that, and I think that's what I'm saying. I recommend that we come together as a board and get back on a solid package. So whenever the ED is giving a report, that will be in there, and we can question some of these things.
You have something measurable.
Right.
Got it. For instance, this report, and I see this every month, and we talk about our port ends. In our port ends, this is low rent, but on our HVC, we have a port end for St. John Parish. We have to pay them back because we've been receiving money for that port end for years, and there is no one attached to it.
How does that happen?
Internally, somebody wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. Just like we were able to find it, for years, we were
much is
able
it?
to find it. The auditor is going to send me the dollar amount.
Is it expected to
So
be
that has to
substantial?
come out your money.
It's rent, 1 month, it's monthly rent, depending on that individual family size income. It could be anywhere from $300 to $900 a
And
month
how many-
multiplied.
How many years?
I'm not certain yet. I'm not certain yet. We have there's just a plethora of reasons why we need to have our accounting in-house. I was concerned about the HVC payments because every month all I do is approve direct deposits. I want to know what's attached to that, to those direct deposits, and are we still paying good people? I have a slew of 1099s that came back. I want research on it. I want to know whether or not money actually went to those people. I got a phone call from an honest person who said, I got a 1099 and I don't have a unit in your program anymore. So we are still in crisis management. This is the first time that we've discussed these type of things at a board meeting, but this is the kind of stuff I deal with on a daily basis.
All right, Don Paul, so we're talking about governance issues.
Right.
Obviously, there's a need to have a committee from a couple of these board members to separately meet with the executive director and possibly even with you to figure out this.
Right.
Is there,
Let's do that.
do you have a recommendation on forming that or having a name for that or what we should do?
I actually would like to research it
Okay.
first to make sure that we are doing everything correctly. I did actually Google a few minutes ago on my phone, just best practices for HUD, and I, found actually a lot of stuff. But so that's good for just, but I want to research the legal requirements at least
Okay.
to make sure that we're doing this correctly.
Can we get your opinion on that, like, by the next board meeting? So,
Yes, of course.
all right, appreciate it.
Let's go to.
Okay. At this time, do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion to enter into executive session.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bailey to enter into executive session. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Lorette, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion to enter back into our regular meeting.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Bailey,
Second the motion.
second by Commissioner Angelique, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. All right, do we have any other board discussion? Any other issues? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:43.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bailey to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The meeting is now adjourned. Time is 7:43.
I don't have my phone. Janet?